So welcome, Mr. Watson. We thank you for joining us. And for today's webinar, I'm going to ask you to just share your own experience as a beneficiary, as one who has received proceeds of life insurance benefits. Not
Good
many
night.
times. Yep, right. So,
Good
not
night,
many
each and
times
everyone.
persons. Yes, good evening. So you can go ahead and
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. This is Mr. Watson, Keith Watson, born under the clock of Montego Bay. Grew up in the city, grew up in the beautiful district of Granville, St. James. Then after leaving Granville, I live in Rose Heights, Montego Bay. For those who are from St. James, they must have been familiar with Granville and Rose Heights. However, with that being said, I never believe in life insurance. Never believe in it. Throughout the years I've been working, I've never believed in life insurance. But one day I was in Shoppers Fair, Westgate, and this lady approached me. She's the same person who is hosting the program now and introduced life insurance to me. But somehow, what she said to me makes sense. And as a sales rep, I know the art and science of sales. And she did the art and science of sales. So I said, okay, since you master the art and science of sales, let me buy into your program because I expect when I walk into supermarket to sell my company product, that's Chastity Ramsden. Most people know the company by Fasca Oat. I expect them to buy my product. And this lady has hit my heart in terms of telling me life insurance. I went home and I introduced it also to my wife. And there and then she also never believed in it. As Jamaican, we don't believe in life insurance. But on a short notice, we buy into the policy. And years after, strategy, circumstance hit my family. My wife died on an uncircumcised situation. She was murdered December 13, 2013, on Barnett Street, Oneness Plaza. And there and then, we were in the process of building, so we didn't have any money. We didn't have any money. So I was right now having to mourn the death of my wife and to also, how am I going to bury her? But with close communication with Miss Simmet, she called me 2 days after she heard the news and tell me not to worry because remember I have a policy. I didn't even remember the policy because the policy was a salary. The policy was salary reduction. So I never really think about it. And at that time, if it wasn't the policy that I have, I wouldn't be able to send off my wife in fine style. Though I miss her, though I lost her, she was the love of my life, but I was able to send her off without even asking for any family contribution through the policy. And I can encourage anyone that this life insurance policy does well. Not only that, it also carry a saving. I was able to also pull from my saving to go on a vacation from my saving. And so this policy that she's telling everyone about this afternoon, it is real. I am a true beneficiary from it. I can testify. I have no reason to lie. I have no reason to say anything to make me see me feel good because I'm a living testimony. And for those who have known Montego Bay and know me, must have heard about my wife who died 2013, December 2013, and Oneness Plaza. She did own a hairdresser, and I'm a resident of Rosheights, attend Pastor King Church, that's the church on 41. So I am well known in Montego Bay. So I am telling you, this policy works. So if you have any doubt, you are hearing from someone who have been there and benefit from it. And I encourage you, take from this policy. Even though I am no longer living in Jamaica and I still have my policy. I didn't, not because I've migrated, I closed the policy. No, I maintain the policy up to this moment that I'm talking to you all. Because I have my children, and I don't know, just like how my wife was taken from me suddenly, I don't know if I'm going to be taken from them suddenly, and I may not have something to leave back with them. So these are my few words to you all.
Ms. Simit, you're muted. We're not hearing you.
Right. You can explain, just talk to us a little bit about how sudden that passing was, because persons sometimes can't relate.
The passing was so sudden. The passing was because for those who are in Montego Bay, I was in Mount Salem at Queen Supermarket, and my wife called me like 1 p.m. asking me to pick up my son on Thompson Street and take to her at Oneness Plaza. And by the time I leave Mount Salem and reach Thompson Street, pick up my son, I got another call. But I thought my daughter phone accidentally called me, because when I answered the phone, there was a lot of noise in the background, and it was the end of the school here. So I thought my daughter was at some function at school when I heard the noise. So I ended up cut off the call because I didn't want her credit to run out. So by the time I leave Thompson Street to head onto Art Street, coming in the vicinity of One Island, I saw the crowd. And when I park on Art Street and walk over to the plaza. And I realized everybody was looking at me. I said, what kind of crowd is this? Anyway, I didn't say anything. By the time I tried to enter the step, there was this man blocked the step. And then I said, can you excuse me? I'm the owner for that shop. He said, no, you cannot go there. He take out his ID and show me that he's a police officer and this is a crime scene. So between 1 and 1:15, my wife was taken away from me. 1 o'clock, I was in Queen Supermarket, Mount Salem. And by the time I get to leave from Mount Salem to Thompson Street, my wife was killed.
Wow.
That's how sudden it was. And we don't know, that can be just like a second. It was just a second.
Okay.
Even when she called me and asked me to pick up my son, I said, babes, I'm going to take the back road to go to Blue Diamond. I have no time. And she said to me that rain is falling, because I was inside the supermarket. I didn't know that rain was falling outside. And when I came outside now to enter the car, I saw the rain. I said, okay, you're lucky. I'm going to come then. So between 1 to 1:15, that was it.
Wow.
Just like that.
And I know you were the first one who was covered. And
I was the first one was covered, yes.
Yes, and then, as an advisor, you can't, the exposure is both ways. Wife or husband, the risk can happen to either party.
Anyone.
Right? Anyone. And so I made sure that Mrs. Watson had coverage as well.
Covered also.
Was it an easy sell?
No, even when you approach her, she didn't believe in it.
Okay.
She didn't believe in it, and I have to say, Miss Smith, sign up. I will pay. I will pay it also because she said she's not paying for what she won't be benefiting in life of. So it was a hard task for her to pay the policy. I end up having to pay the policy myself, and it was Miss Smith who forced her to sign the documents.
All right.
I
So
said,
wait. I
I'm not going
encouraged
to
her
sign
to
something.
sign the
I'm not going to
document.
pay it.
Yes, I encouraged her to sign it and then reported back to you to say, yes, that is completed. And so we went on to the payment. Now, in terms of the grieving process and surety of
Yeah,
funds
encourage her,
from
not
other
me. The
sources
document was
of
signed.
how sure were you to get funds from other places?
Uh,
How was the process, the claims
to
process?
be frank,
How was that?
when you call me and tell me the process was so easy, I didn't even have to wait. I didn't have to wait. That was it. And in less than a week, I was able to get the check in the account. It was so fast.
Yeah. And was there any other
She
certain source?
buried. She
All right.
buried. She
I'm gonna ask you
died.
to repeat what
No,
you're
there was other
saying.
financial help.
Okay.
There was no other financial help because I have more than enough that could bury her. So I didn't have to get any family help financially to,
Hmm.
to step in. And she died December 13 and buried January 18. And between December 13 to January, able to get the check long before January comes in.
Okay.
The process was 1, 2, 3. Didn't have to fight. Didn't have to have any headache. Didn't have to go around and trying to worry myself. It was so easy. All I had to do was to present the death certificate, and then you would do the rest.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
That's why you have an agent to do the runaround for you.
Right.
Right. So I'm happy you had a good experience and they're hearing it from you. Alice. Right. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So at this time, any questions for Mr. Watson? Anyone? Any questions for Mr. Watson? All right. And what I remember in terms of how death can take you at any time, and you just never know who next. I was sitting
Who next?
at a table with yourself and another friend who was supporting you, another church member who was
Yes.
supporting you. And
She's
within weeks,
deceased
I
now.
asked you, where is this
Yeah.
lovely lady who was with you? And you said, what
She's
happened?
deceased. 6 months
Yes,
after. 6 months after my wife buried, she died. She
she was
died.
gone. The
Um,
same lady was in
my
your
wife,
company.
Jared, my wife buried January 18, 2014, and she died June 16, 2014, 6 months after.
All right. So, so it's not just to make this like a morbid presentation, but it's to let you know that this is real stuff and you need funds, you need finance. And life insurance is a certain source for
Yes,
final expenses, funeral costs, and mostly for those who are left behind, your dependent,
yes,
right? Your dependents who need the monies are left behind, and we have the responsibility to take care of them until they're finished university and on their own. All right?
yes.
Right, right. So thank you for sharing, Mr. Watson. And now
You're
I'm going
welcome.
to, yes, and so that's the individual life side. I am going to ask, welcome now, Pastor Robert Edwards from the Kingsway Tabernacle. to share on how the group plan, which is a church-made plan that covers the members in the church and those persons who have enrolled would have a benefit in case of death. So just share with us how helpful that has been and the kind of miracles that it has performed for the members. Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
It's really a pleasure to be able to share with you this evening. I want to say a special greetings to your host, Mrs. Smith. And I am to see some names of some persons that I'm familiar with. And so I want to say good evening to you all. I am basically in a kind of a different position from Mr. Watson, because, you know, I was an insurance agent some years ago. 3 years, I spent 3 years with LOJ. And so no one need to convince me where insurance is concerned. Before I go to the church mate, I must say that I am a beneficiary of life insurance. When my mother died in 1996, last child of 8 of us, but the responsibility was placed on me to bury my mother. And so the fact that I had a life insurance for her, you know, I was able to bury her without any problem, without any struggle. And even at the end of the funeral, I actually had balance in my account. So that was my first time benefiting from life insurance. And some years ago, I also I bought what you call a critical illness, you know, for my wife. I had to convince her of how important it is for her to have this insurance. I remember when we spoke with the agent, I told her that I want to buy 3 million coverage for her. And she said, no, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. And I said, okay, 2 million. She said, no, we can't afford it. And I said, okay, 1.5 million. And she said, no, 1 million. And I said, no. I am not going to go down to 1 million. I'm going to stop at 1.5 million. And I said, a matter of fact, who is paying the insurance? You or me? And she said, you. So I said, look, I'm paying it, so I'm going to buy 1.5 million. And a few years after, she was diagnosed with cancer. And so, you know, when I collected that check of 1.5 million and I showed it to her, she shook her head and she said, oh my God, if I'd known, I would have let it stay at the 3 million. All right. And so insurance is very, very important. Some years ago, I sold her an investment life, and that investment life happened to mature after 10 years. And when I cash in on that investment life and I took home the check, she was so elated. She could not believe, because, you know, the premium was coming out of her salary, so she wasn't missing it. But, you know, and so I am what do you call it though? I'm very experienced where insurance is concerned. So when I was approached by Mrs. Smith, where the church mate is concerned, I did not hesitate. My only challenge was to convince the members of Kingsway Tabernacle to buy this insurance. And so I invited her to come to Kingsway and to talk to the folks, give them, you know, information and answer questions that I could not answer. And they were convinced. And so we bought the church mate. Amen. It's a one-time payment that time of $2,995 for the year. The coverage at that time was 250,000 or 300,000. I think one of them, 300,000. Think about it. You're only paying $2,950 once for the year. And if you multiply that by 12 and then multiply that by, some of us, we might say we soon retire, but if you multiply it by the number of months and years, you'll realize that you will not pay the amount that will total the coverage. And that's the strategy that we use to sell this insurance policy to the membership. And so I am happy to say that we are, it's now moved up to 500,000 benefits, and they pay $4,900. No, $4,200. One payment for the year, one time. All right. And most of us, we buy that in telephone calls for the month or say 2 months, you spend that money. And so to date, we have benefited from that policy, 6 times. We have had 6 deceased, and we have, I don't know if you know Miss Simit, but another church brother of us died 2 weeks ago.
Yes,
and so, and so that's going to be number 7. And so it is real, it is genuine, it is very helpful. I'm telling you, I remember when it was introduced to us, there was a young man who, is married, and and I said to him, you need to get this insurance. And I remember he said to me, God is his insurance. And I said to him, God is my insurance too. But I'm going to make sure that if I pass, then my family is taken care of, or they can bury me without have to ask for help. And we had to come together to help to bury that young man when he died. And so I said to myself, that will never happen. That will never happen to me, and Kingsway Tabernacle has benefited from this insurance. And so I can say to any congregation, this is something that you need to have. Since we bought this policy, I can say that I went to a meeting in Kingston, and I was talking about it, and my organization bought this policy for all the ministers of the organization, and there are several assemblies who end up buying this policy. So, it's very, very important. It will do good to your congregation. That's it. Thank you. These are my few words, like Mr. Watson. And let me say, it doesn't take a long time to get the check. I can tell you. You'll get it in a few days. Sometimes might take, it all depends on if all the documents are in place. Within a week or a week and a half, you have that check. As long as all the documents are in place, information that they request from you. Thank you.
Good. So, what is that claim process that we talk about? The first thing is to have a proof of death. And in Jamaica, we have the Registrar General that would provide the death certificate. But what we actually use is our own form, which is a physician's proof of death form. So the doctor that pronounced the death will fill out that form, and it will be stamped by the hospital. And once that comes in, then we start the process, right? So of course, the beneficiary's ID, the form has to be signed off by the church and so on. So with the individual plan, just the same, you need a physician's proof of death form, right? The beneficiary's ID and claimant form. So you have to state, a few things about the deceased and sign and all of that. You have to make sure that the contract is there and that is sent off to Kingston, where it is processed in our claims department. Now, you have the option to go to check off the forms with us and go straight into Kingston. I remember there was one case where it was about the Thursday or about the Wednesday before the funeral because some documents were delayed for that beneficiary. And they took the Knoxford into Kingston and got the check the same day. Well, of course, I prepared the person who was in Kingston to say, the person is coming and scan the forms up and so on. So it can even be quicker than the timeline that I'm telling you. But we are in the business of dealing with the promise that we made to you. We are in the business of paying claims. All right. And so we try to make the process as smooth as possible for you. But there's one thing I want to remind you of. What's very, very important is that you check first your individual plans. Ask yourself, are these the beneficiaries that I want to have on my plan? We advise persons to update their plans every year just to check who are these persons, who are these beneficiaries. Because some persons have the plans for years, they've written a name on, and they haven't gone back to check. It could be there are some sad stories as well, where there is a relationship and there's a breakup. The spouse is still a beneficiary named on the plan and wasn't changed. And therefore, when the person dies now, those children of another father, they can't benefit. Then we have to find that original spouse who is the true beneficiary. Neither can anyone else get the information on the policy once you're not named as a beneficiary. So you need to check to see, with all your life changes, what are the changes that you need to make to your beneficiary designation, right? So we always look at the coverage, we look at the amount um, to see if it is fitting your lifestyle and fitting the changes in your family, the growth in your family. And we also want to make sure that you have the right beneficiaries that you want to have, right? So if you have your children on there and you decide that, boy, once you fall out with them, you don't want them to be beneficiaries again, then come up and change it. Yep. You have to think as well about the trustees that you're having. Once there is a minor, you must name a trustee on your plan. And this trustee must be someone who has your child's best interest at heart. And guess what? Persons change when it comes on to receiving monies. They have a lump sum and they have all these ideas what they want to do with it. But we try to protect the children in encouraging the trustee to open a trust fund or an account where it is in the child's name with an irrevocable beneficiary attached, right? So nothing can be done without the irrevocable beneficiary. Um, the child name as irrevocable beneficiary, but there's a trustee named, and nothing can be done without the other party knowing what is happening. right? So think about the trustees that you have. Many person, I've had many cases where um, the mother doesn't trust their own mother or father or sisters, and they put a friend. And a couple of years down the road, that friend and them, they are no longer friends. And so they need to change that. So you really have to think about the beneficiary so that the family can seamlessly receive the funds, and it does the purpose that you originally intended for. All right. So what do you do if you have multiple policies? You There is a flat fee of 1,000, call it round up to 1,900 that you pay for changing beneficiaries on all of them. If it's one contract that you have, it's $1,200. So bear that cost in mind. All right. If you have a policy that says the beneficiary is the estate, then that needs to be changed as well. Because once you have the estate named as a beneficiary, the estate has to be administered first. Well, of course, there would need to be a will, and the will has to go to probate, right? And the funds from the insurance policy is paid to the estate, and after the executor completes the whole administration of the estate, then of course that money maybe would just go into the estate to deal with fees, right? But then what about funeral costs? That is so immediate. You want to make sure that you have a named person on the insurance, right? So that the final expenses can be dealt with and a portion put aside for the estate. Very important because there are so many fees there that you will need to factor in your estate taxes, estate costs, stamp duties, transfer taxes. And know that the transfer taxes on your property increases by 6% each year after the anniversary of the deceased. So these are things that has to be dealt with quickly. All right. So very important information there for you. So I just want you to have that update to know that, it's not just coming from me to say that the individual life plans are very important. Critical illness is very important, and that you should make sure you have one in your portfolio. And also you have group plans that for persons who can't afford the individual plan, you're part of a group like a church, right? Or a company, small company that can get a health card, you can get benefits. So benefits are out there for you. And what I want you to do is to, contact me and just let me know what area you have that need. All right? And you can enrich your portfolio.